There is a quiet kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Not physical tiredness, but the fatigue of explaining yourself. The weariness of living in a world that rewards noise, visibility, and constant performance. You wake up every day surrounded by people who talk more than they act, who announces their plans before they've earned them. Those who measure their worth by attention instead of discipline. Stoicism was never meant for that world. It was built for moments like this, when you realize that real strength doesn't need witnesses. This path is lonely by design, waking up before the world demands anything from you, speaking less, not because you are weak, but because your energy is valuable. Training hard even when no one knows your name. Staying unknown, not out of fear, but out of freedom. This video is not here to motivate you. It's here to remind you of something deeper. You don't need applause to become powerful. You need discipline, practiced in silence, repeated daily, and carried when no one is watching. 1. Wake up early. Discipline begins when no one is watching. Waking up early isn't about productivity hacks or chasing success. It's about choosing yourself before the world starts making demands. When the alarm rings and everything in you wants to stay comfortable, that moment becomes a crossroads. No one is watching. No one is counting. No one will praise you for getting up. And that's exactly why it matters. Most people wait for pressure to move them. Deadlines, fear, urgency created by others. But a Stoic understands something deeper. The day is already lost if you begin it reacting instead of deciding. Early mornings are quiet, not just because the world is asleep, but because distractions haven't arrived yet. There are no messages to answer, no opinions to manage, no roles to perform. Just you and the person you're becoming. This is where discipline is born. Not the loud kind, not the kind you post online, the private kind that builds self-respect. Each early morning is a small promise kept to yourself, and every promise you keep strengthens your inner authority. You start trusting yourself again. You start believing your own word. That trust compounds. People talk about confidence as if it's something you feel first and act on later. Stoicism flips that. Confidence is the reward for consistent, uncomfortable action, and waking up early is one of the simplest ways to train it. Because it forces you to confront resistance before excuses have time to form. You learn something important in those hours. You don't need motivation to move. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. You only need a decision. When you wake up early, you reclaim ownership of your time, and time is the only thing you never get back. Every morning you take it back before the world takes it from you. You reinforce a quiet truth. My life responds to my discipline, not my moods. There's also something humbling about early mornings. You realize how small you are and how much work there is to do. No shortcuts, no spectators, just repetition. And that repetition hardens you in the right way, not bitter, not aggressive, but grounded. Over time, waking up early stops feeling like sacrifice. It becomes identity. You're no longer someone who tries to be disciplined. You are someone who does the work before it's required. That's the kind of man who doesn't panic when things go wrong later in the day. He already won the most important battle, against himself, before sunrise. So wake up early, not to impress anyone, not to chase approval. Wake up early because discipline practiced in silence is the foundation of unshakable strength. And the strongest people you'll ever meet, they usually started their day long before you noticed them. 2. Say less. Silence is where your power stops leaking. There comes a point in life when you realize that explaining yourself doesn't bring clarity. It brings exhaustion. You explain your intentions, you explain your choices, you explain your boundaries, and still you feel misunderstood. Stoicism teaches a hard truth. The need to be understood is often the beginning of weakness. Not because understanding is bad, but because chasing it from the wrong people drains your energy and hands them control. Most people talk too much because they're afraid of silence. Silence forces accountability. Silence reveals intentions. Silence removes the comfort of hiding behind words. A Stoic doesn't rush to fill that space. When you speak less, you begin to notice how much of your talking was never about communication. It was about defense, about justifying your worth, about softening the discomfort of being judged. But here's what silence does. It returns ownership of your emotions back to you. The moment you stop explaining, you stop negotiating your value. You begin to understand something subtle but powerful. Your actions already speak louder than anything you could say. The right people don't need explanations. The wrong people will never accept them anyway. Silence also sharpens perception. When you're not busy talking, you start listening, not just to words, but to patterns, to tone, to consistency, to what people do when they think no one is watching. This is how you protect yourself without confrontation. Stoicism isn't about being cold. It's about being deliberate, speaking only when your words add value, walking away when they won't. There is strength in restraint. There is dignity in not reacting. There is authority in choosing when to remain quiet. When someone tries to provoke you and you don't respond, you haven't lost. You've taken the higher ground. You've denied them access to your inner world. And that denial creates respect, even if it's never admitted out loud. Over time, saying less changes how people treat you. They become more careful with their words, more aware of your presence, because silence signals confidence. It says, I don't need to convince you of anything. The Stoics understood this well. They knew that words are cheap, but character is expensive and built slowly. So speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because your energy is better spent becoming someone whose silence carries weight. In a world addicted to noise, restraint becomes a form of quiet dominance. And the less you explain, the more unshakable you become. 3. Train hard. Choose the pain that makes you strong. There is a kind of suffering that weakens you and another that fortifies you. Stoicism teaches you to tell the difference. Most people spend their lives avoiding discomfort. They structure everything around convenience, ease, and instant relief. But what they don't realize is this. The pain you avoid today becomes the pain that controls you tomorrow. Training hard is not about building a body that others admire. It's about building a mind that doesn't collapse under pressure. When you choose to train, when you willingly place yourself under strain, you are rehearsing for life. You're teaching yourself how to stay present when things hurt, how to breathe when resistance rises, how to keep moving when quitting feels justified. This is voluntary hardship, and it is one of the oldest Stoic practices. Because life will test you whether you're ready or not. Illness, loss, failure, betrayal, fatigue. These things arrive unannounced, and when they do, they don't care how comfortable your life has been. Hard training prepares you without drama. In the gym, in the cold, in the repetition, you meet yourself honestly. No filters, no excuses. You discover how you react when no one is cheering and your body wants to stop. That moment tells you more about your character than any success ever could. Training also strips away ego. There's nothing glamorous about showing up tired. There's nothing impressive about doing the basics again and again. But there is something powerful about becoming reliable to yourself. Each session completed in silence builds an internal record. I don't quit when it gets uncomfortable. That belief doesn't stay in your body. It follows you into difficult conversations, long days, and moments when life demands more than you plan to give. You don't train hard to punish yourself. You train hard to remove fear. Fear of effort, fear of fatigue, fear of your own limits. And as those fears dissolve, something steadier replaces them. Calm confidence. The Stoics believed the body was a training ground for the mind. If you can endure physical strain with discipline, you're less likely to panic when emotional strain arrives. So train hard, not loudly, not for recognition. Train hard because when life eventually applies pressure, and it always does, you'll already know how to stand your ground. Strength built in silence doesn't announce itself, but it shows up when everything else falls apart. 4. Stay unknown. Power grows faster in the dark. The world tells you to be visible, to document progress, to announce milestones, to turn every achievement into proof. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Needing to be seen is a quiet form of dependence. The moment your effort requires an audience, your peace becomes fragile, your motivation becomes external, and external motivation always expires. Staying unknown isn't about hiding. It's about protecting your inner direction. When no one is watching, your actions become honest. You stop performing. You stop measuring yourself against reactions. You stop adjusting your path to fit expectations that were never yours to begin with. This is where real growth accelerates. The strongest foundations are built underground. Roots grow in darkness long before anything visible appears above the surface. The same is true for character. Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to do the right thing without needing praise, because virtue loses its purity when it depends on recognition. What is good doesn't need to be advertised. Staying unknown frees you from comparison. You're no longer distracted by who is ahead, who is behind, or who is watching. Your only concern becomes alignment between what you believe and what you do. And alignment is power. There is also safety in anonymity. Fewer opinions, fewer expectations, fewer interruptions. When you're not constantly explaining or defending yourself, you conserve an immense amount of mental energy. That energy can be redirected into work, training, and reflection. Over time, something subtle happens. You begin to feel lighter, less reactive, less desperate for validation. You move with intention instead of urgency. People who chase visibility often burn out. People who stay unknown often endure. Not because they are less ambitious, but because their ambition is internal. It doesn't fluctuate with applause or silence. So stay unknown, not forever, but long enough. Long enough to build strength without interference. Long enough to know who you are without feedback. Long enough to let results mature quietly. Because when the time comes to be seen, you won't need to announce it. Your presence will speak first. 5. Cut distraction. Every distraction is a silent theft. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because their attention is constantly being stolen. Not violently, not dramatically, but quietly, minute by minute. Distraction doesn't arrive as chaos. It arrives as comfort. As small interruptions you don't feel the need to resist. A notification, a scroll, a conversation that goes nowhere. An impulse to check instead of commit. Stoicism sees this clearly. What you give your attention to, you give your life to. Focus is not a personality trait. It's a discipline. And like all discipline, it requires subtraction before addition. When you cut distractions, you begin to feel resistance, restlessness, boredom, an urge to escape stillness. That discomfort reveals how dependent the modern mind has become on stimulation, and it explains why so many people feel busy, but empty. A Stoic does not seek constant input. He seeks clarity. Clarity comes when the noise is removed. Cutting distraction is not about isolation from the world. It's about deciding what deserves access to you, your time, your energy, your inner space. These are not unlimited resources. Every unnecessary distraction is a silent theft from the work that matters. When you protect your focus, something changes. Your thoughts slow down. Your actions become deliberate. your standards rise. You stop reacting to everything and start responding only to what aligns with your values. This is why the Stoics valued simplicity. Fewer possessions, fewer obligations, fewer words. Not because less is morally superior, but because less makes strength sustainable. Distraction weakens resolve. Focus sharpens it. And focus, sustained over time, becomes something rare. Authority over yourself. You don't need to eliminate everything. You just need to eliminate what pulls you away from who you're trying to become. So cut distraction, not aggressively, not impulsively, but deliberately. Because in a world designed to scatter your attention, the man who can focus deeply becomes dangerous, not to others, but to his former limitations. And that kind of strength is built quietly, one protected hour at a time. 6. Master your reactions. Nothing has power over you until you give it permission. Most people believe their emotions are caused by events, by words spoken, by situations they didn't choose. Stoicism cuts deeper than that. It teaches that what hurts you is not what happens, but how quickly you surrender control to it. Between every event and your reaction, there is a moment. A pause so small most people never notice it. But inside that pause is your freedom. When someone disrespects you, the impulse is immediate. Defend, explain, strike back. When something goes wrong, the reflex is to complain, panic, or blame. These reactions feel justified, even natural, but they are also predictable, and anything predictable can be controlled by others. A Stoic trains to slow this moment down, not to suppress emotion, but to observe it without obedience. You begin to see anger rise like a wave. You feel the heat, the tension, the urge to act, and instead of following it, you stay still. You let it pass, not because you are weak, but because you are disciplined. This is where real power develops. When you stop reacting automatically, people lose the ability to manipulate you. Provocation fails. Drama starves. You remain steady while others exhaust themselves trying to pull you into their chaos. Calm is not passive. Calm is controlled strength. The Stoics understood that the man who can govern himself cannot be governed by circumstances. He may feel frustration, disappointment, even pain, but he does not become them. Mastering your reactions also changes how you see the world. You stop taking things personally. You stop assuming every inconvenience is an attack. You conserve energy by refusing to turn minor events into internal wars. This discipline doesn't arrive overnight. It's trained through awareness, reflection, and repeated restraint. Each time you choose not to react, you strengthen the part of you that remains unshaken. And over time, something remarkable happens. You become difficult to disturb, hard to provoke, impossible to rush. So master your reactions. Not to appear calm, but to be free. Because the person who controls their response controls their direction, and direction, sustained long enough, becomes destiny. Most people don't realize how much of their life is spent reacting. Reacting to tone, reacting to disrespect, reacting to disappointment, reacting to things they cannot control. They call it honesty. They call it being real. Stoicism calls it leakage of power. Every uncontrolled reaction hands the steering wheel to something outside of you. A person, a moment, an emotion that appeared uninvited. And the more often that happens, the less authority you have over your own life. A Stoic understands something uncomfortable but liberating. You don't control what hits you. You control what stays. Between stimulus and response lives the most important muscle you can train: restraint. At first, restraint feels unnatural. Silence feels like swallowing fire. Not responding feels like losing. Walking away feels like surrender. But that's only because your nervous system has been conditioned to equate reaction with survival. Stoic discipline retrains that instinct. You begin by noticing the physical signals, the tightening jaw, the accelerated breath, the urge to interrupt, defend, or correct. Instead of obeying them, you pause. That pause is not weakness, it's leverage. In that pause, you ask yourself one question: is reacting here making me stronger or just louder? Most of the time, the answer is clear. When you master your reactions, you stop being emotionally available to every disturbance. Not everything deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves a defense. Not every provocation deserves your time. This changes how people interact with you. Those who seek drama get bored. Those who rely on emotional hooks lose access. Those who respect strength begin to adjust their tone. Not because you demanded respect, but because you stopped feeding disrespect with energy. There is also an internal shift that happens. You stop being at war with yourself. You no longer replay conversations in your head, wishing you had said something different. You no longer carry emotional residue from moments that should have ended long ago. Your mind becomes quieter, clearer. The Stoics believed that inner turbulence was more damaging than external hardship. A man shaken by his own reactions is easier to break than a man facing difficult circumstances with composure. Mastering your reactions builds a kind of emotional immunity. You still feel anger, but it doesn't command you. You still feel disappointment, but it doesn't define you. You still feel pressure, but it doesn't collapse you. This is not suppression. Suppression hides emotion until it explodes. Stoic control lets emotion pass without ownership. You acknowledge it, learn from it, and release it. Over time, this practice changes your identity. You become someone who responds slowly and deliberately. Someone who doesn't rush to speak. Someone whose calm unsettles people who expected chaos. And the greatest benefit is this: you stop wasting energy on things that don't move your life forward. That energy returns to you, focused, refined, available. So master your reactions, because life will never stop testing you, but the man who governs his inner world cannot be conquered by the outer one. And once you realize that nothing controls you unless you allow it, you stop feeling trapped. You start moving freely, quietly, steadily, and with purpose. 7. Let results speak. When you stop explaining, life answers for you. There is a moment in every disciplined life when something shifts. Not outwardly, not dramatically, but internally. It's the moment you realize that talking has never been the problem. Believing that talking would save you was. For years, you might have tried to explain yourself, your intentions, your struggles, your plans, your delays. You wanted to be understood. You wanted fairness. You wanted people to see the effort you were putting in behind the scenes. But Stoicism teaches a harder, quieter truth. Explanations don't change outcomes. Actions do. Letting results speak means accepting that silence is not absence. It is preparation. It is patience. It is restraint sharpened over time. Most people speak early because they are uncertain. They announce goals to borrow confidence from attention. They argue to protect fragile pride. They defend to soften judgment. The Stoic does the opposite. He delays speech, he delays celebration, he delays recognition. Because he understands that results have a gravity words can never imitate. When results speak, they do not ask for permission. They don't negotiate. They don't argue. They arrive fully formed. This is why they are respected, even by those who doubted you. Letting results speak requires patience, and patience is painful in a world obsessed with immediacy. You will work while others talk, improve while others compare, progress while others seek reassurance. There will be long stretches where nothing seems to change externally. No praise, no validation, no acknowledgement, only routine, only effort, only repetition. This is where most people quit. not because they can't do the work, but because they can't tolerate being unseen while doing it. Stoicism prepares you for this. It teaches you to detach your identity from feedback, to stop using reaction as proof of worth, to measure progress internally before expecting it externally. When you let results speak, you free yourself from the exhausting need to convince. You stop correcting misunderstandings. You stop chasing agreement. You stop entering debates that drain more than they build. Your life becomes quieter, but heavier. Every action carries weight because it's not diluted by constant commentary. There is also humility in this approach. You accept that not everyone will notice your effort, and you stop needing them to. You trust the process enough to stay committed even when no one is clapping. This humility is not submission. It is confidence without display. The Stoics believed that virtue proves itself through consistency, not announcements. That excellence doesn't need witnesses, only time. And time, when paired with discipline, is ruthless in its honesty. It exposes pretenders, it rewards endurance, it reveals who was building and who was performing. When results finally speak, they often say very little, but they say enough. A calmer presence, a steadier life, a stronger body, a mind that doesn't fracture under pressure, a reputation built quietly, without self-promotion. People begin to feel the difference before they can explain it. They sense reliability. They sense depth. They sense that you are not easily shaken. And those who once underestimated you rarely admit they were wrong. They simply adjust how they treat you. That is the real shift. Not domination, not revenge, but respect earned without demand. Letting results speak also protects you from ego. You don't become addicted to praise because you never relied on it. You don't collapse under criticism because you outgrew the need for approval. Your standards become internal. Your motivation becomes self-sustaining. And perhaps most importantly, you gain peace. Peace from no longer having to prove yourself. Peace from no longer rehearsing defenses in your head. Peace from knowing that if your path is right, time will confirm it. So let results speak. Let silence do its work. Let consistency compound. Because when your life becomes the evidence, words become unnecessary. And the strongest statement you will ever make is simply how you live, day after day, without explanation. Unseen, unapplauded, unbreakable. This path was never meant to be loud. It was never designed to impress, to attract attention, or to collect approval. It exists for those who are willing to build something real while remaining invisible to the crowd. Waking up early taught you self-respect. Saying less protected your energy. Training hard hardened your body and your mind. Staying unknown freed you from dependence on praise. Cutting distraction gave you clarity. Mastering your reactions gave you freedom. And letting results speak gave you dignity. None of this happens overnight. There are no shortcuts, no moments of sudden recognition. Just quiet days stacked on top of each other, slowly forming a life that doesn't shake under pressure. Most people will never notice your discipline, and that's the point. Because the goal was never to be seen. The goal was to be unbreakable. If you stay on this path long enough, you'll realize something important. You no longer need permission, validation, or explanation. You move with certainty because your life reflects your values. So continue in silence. Continue with discipline. Continue without announcement. Let the world rush. Let others seek attention. You remain steady, grounded, and patient. Over time, your calm becomes your signature. Your consistency becomes your reputation, and your quiet strength becomes impossible to ignore. And remember this truth when doubt returns. You don't need to be seen to be powerful. You only need to keep going when no one is watching.